Hello everybody, and today I think I invented the most OP build in Pilgrimmed. I'll show it to you so long as you promise me to subscribe to the channel. If the build is not as good as you thought, then you can unsubscribe. I got a comment asking me to make a build where you don't need to parry or dodge, but you still shred all bosses. Like the guy who replied to him, I thought this is definitely impossible. If such a build existed, it would be nerfed by now and it wouldn't be usable. Little did I know how wrong I was. So I thought to myself, the only way that I could achieve this was by using a ranged weapon. It's impossible to beat bosses while you're in melee range without parrying. So I was immediately locked to 3 options: bows, staves, and guns. And then I remembered a few weeks ago one of my friends was actually using a frost build. They were using a frost bow and applying frost burn every second, and it seemed pretty OP, but the damage didn't seem that good. Then I took a look at the build that they sent me, and I realized that it could have some changes. They were actually using the scarecrow hat, which gives your arrows armor penetration, but I realized that this was a huge mistake. There was actually another hat, which was intended for mages, which can actually stack with Frostburn and make it 10 times better. The result of the changes that I made to the build is this disgustingly strong Frozen Archer long-range DPS build. This build is literally good against any boss in the game. It does get better the bigger and the more tanky the enemy is, because 90% of our damage is what we call true damage, which is damage that goes through the enemy's armor. And the way that you get this is not the way that you think. Instead of getting 100% armor penetration, we use the Frostburn status effect to do all our damage, because it's completely unaffected by the enemy's armor. What this means is that if your Frostburn was to do 100 damage to a bandit, it would do 100 damage to Granny as well. In other words, as long as you get enough Frostburn stacks, you can melt every single boss in the game. Smaller bosses like the Sailord are harder to kill, only because they're physically harder to hit with your bow. So how do you actually get one status effect, Frostburn, to do enough damage to melt the enemy bosses? Well, thank the heavens, there are skills, accessories, and gems to help us do that. So the DPS that this build does is entirely random, for reasons that I'll explain later, but on the starter dummies you can do around 150 to 250 DPS, and on the armor dummies you can do around 100 DPS. This also obviously depends on your aim, so if you miss a few shots like I am, then you won't do the full DPS. This tends to matter less on bigger opponents like Old Fart or Prism Troll, for the reason that it's way easier to actually hit them. So unlike the crit builds in this game, this build doesn't require you to have negative defense, nor does it require you to be really slow. You are a fast moving, high DPS dealing, ranged bow user who can apply frost on hit, which actually slows down your enemies. If you don't believe me, ask this Prism Troll who's struggling to even catch up to me. The Prism Troll is usually tanky as well, but this build just says screw your armor, I'm gonna kill you instantly. So I'm sure you guys are dying to know what the build is by now, so let me prolong this no further. For the helmet, we go for the Ice Crown. Now you may be confused because this is a mage accessory. It literally decreases your dexterity, but the thing that's broken about this on this build is its effect. Any frost you apply is converted into Frostburn, and since the Frost Gem enchant applies frost each time you hit your enemy, every single hit you do will apply Frostburn. Now this is way better than the Scarecrow hat. The Scarecrow hat just gives you 15% armor piercing, but it doesn't affect your Frostburn damage in any way. For the armor, we're using the beginner armor, Archer. There's simply just no better armors for bows. I tried Patchwork, which gives you more dexterity, but you lose defense and end up doing less damage, because the Archer's effects make your arrows do 15% more damage. So the first accessory might confuse you as well. As you can see, it makes your melee combos apply Frostburn on the enemy. Obviously we can't use that. What we are interested in is the other effect. It allows your Frostburns to stack up to 5 times, which is necessary for the other accessory, the Frost Cone. When an enemy reaches 5 stacks of Frostburn, they'll freeze in place and explode for like 180 damage. As you can see, this is the main damage dealer of this build. The reason why we're trying to stack Frostburn is to use this item's effect. The beautiful thing about this is, like Frostburn, it doesn't require you to have armor piercing. It just goes through their armor because it's elemental damage. The other accessories are less important, but just supplemental. The Ranger's Emblem gives your arrows 10% more damage, and 25% more speed. The Sniper Scope gives your bow 35% more range, decreases the windup by 35%, and you move faster while shooting. And the Gorgon's Talon, which is probably the most replaceable accessory, sends you flying backwards whenever you shoot in the air, and gives your arrows 25% more damage and speed. This is pretty hard to use, because your shots become harder to aim, but it does give you a bit of mobility and some extra damage. One item that I'd suggest as a replacement is the Blood Chalice. So for the skill tree, we're using Perception Aced. This makes your Frostburn attack do way more damage, and you can even damage enemies who have resistance against Frostburn. We're also using the Archery skill Aced. This is the thing that makes bows OP for this build. It basically allows you to shoot up to 6 times randomly. So you can apply Frostburn 6 times in one shot, meaning you can activate the Frost Cone explosion instantly. This is only a small chance of occurring, but when it does happen it will add on massively to your DPS. In the defense tree we use Rally Aced. Since we have no way of healing, this lets us stay alive more effectively. And for our final 2 points we use Athlete. So I think this increases your damage output with Frostburn. There's this Gelician Race which you can get by jumping off Cloud City and gliding to the nearest island. It's a snowy island which has an NPC on it, and you just talk to them and you get the race. So let's go over how to get all these accessories. We're fortunate enough to have 2 of the items that you need, the Archer Armor and the Gorgon Talon, right at spawn. You can buy these both for gold, and I suggest you guys go buy thousands of arrows. You're gonna need them to craft frost arrows, which can help you apply Frostburn way faster. To craft the frost arrows, just go to the mountain and talk to the blacksmith. All you need are arrows and mithril, which is an ore you can mine at the mountain. So to get mithril, all you have to do is just mine these ores. It's pretty common. And it's pretty convenient that in this area spawns the Ice Golem, which drops both the Frost Cone and the Shiver Stone. The assassin I just killed earlier also drops the Shiver Stone as well. So to get the Ice Crown, you have to kill the Ice King, who can be found just by scaling the mountain. He's a really easy boss, so you guys shouldn't have much trouble with him. I suggest perhaps using some ranged weapons to make it a lot easier. So he'll be lying on the ground just minding his own business, and when you attack him he'll get up. Now he'll start rolling around and fainting like a Dark Souls boss, but he's slow as hell, which makes it really easy to kill him. I don't remember what the chance is of getting the Ice Crown, but it must be really high because I got it on the first try. So in the same area are Hunter NPCs who will start shooting arrows at you. They actually drop the Ranger's Emblem, so almost all of our drops are coming from the mountain, which makes this really convenient. For the Hunter NPCs, they're pretty easy to kill. I will say though, if you're trying to parry their attacks, just do it really early. The parry timing is quite weird. And I think the drop chance for the Ranger's Emblem is quite low, so be prepared for a grind. And for the final accessory, the Sniper Scope can be crafted in the observatory. It does require a ton of materials: the Sniper Lens, the Nimble Lens, and the Quick Powder. So the Nimble Lens are a drop from the Archers in the desert. The Quick Powder is a drop from the Mercenary in the Savannah. And for the Sniper Lens, you have to go to the shop in the Savannah. It requires an Acute Lens and Sandpod Antenna. So the Acute Lens can also be farmed from the Mercenary, and the Sandpod Antenna can obviously be farmed from the Sandpods. So for the weapon we use the Champion's Bow. I like the Rapid modifier, because it makes your weapon shoot faster with no downsides. And obviously we're going to be using the Frost Gem. You get the Champion's Bow from the Big Iron shop, but the type of bow you use doesn't matter too much, so don't stress about that. So this build is simple to use but hard to master. All you need to do is use frost arrows and shoot the enemy. But you should also be jumping in the air to get the extra damage from the Gorgon Talon, and also dodging the enemy's attacks. I genuinely believe this is the best build in the game, and it will probably get nerfed soon. So just enjoy this while you can, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.